there's one name that's universally regarded as the ultimate in British sports cars, it's Lotus. And if there's one Lotus that's ultimately regarded as the finest in lightweight British sports cars, it's the Elise, the original Series 1 Elise, like this one. So let's take this one for a drive and see if it's good as it's made out to be.
But first, our friends at Lancaster Insurance are running monthly giveaways. You can win all sorts, from experience days to tools, restaurant vouchers and tech. So click the link below at the end of the video to enter their latest competition.
Well, I've only gone about 300 yards, I haven't gone above 30 miles an hour, and I haven't taken the engine above 2,000 RPM while I'm waiting for it to warm up a bit. And this already feels like it's going to be a really great car to drive. I mean, even just sitting in it, without it moving, it promises a lot. The driving position is lovely. Everything just fits. It's really hard to put into words. Everything's just in exactly the right place. Everything is just where I want it to be, with just the right angles, just the right amount of force. Here we go. Here comes a little country road with some corners. Oh yeah, this is good. Anyway, for a moment, let's turn our attention away from the fun experience of driving the Elise and let's talk about the Elise as a car. The Elise really was a return to not so much form as roots for Lotus. Lotus had always sort of struggled to know what to do with itself since the death of Colin Chapman. Lotus started off making lightweight kit car racers, graduated into making bespoke lightweight racers, then became the Lotus 7, race-bred specials like the Elite, graduated into making excellent road-going sports cars with the Elan, mass production by that stage, not just available as kits. It also had its Formula 1 and other racing successes to draw on. And then in the 1970s, Lotus decided to go up market and make premium high-performance sports cars that really wanted to set it on the level with some Porsche and even Ferrari. The Eclat, the Elite and the Esprit, and that gamble didn't really pay off. It was also the 1970s, you had the energy crisis and the recession and things at the time, which also didn't help. But Lotus entered the 80s in quite a bad state, both financially and in terms of where its image and its reputation was. It had a good sideline doing consultancy work for other car companies, which led to the tie-up with Toyota, eventually being bought by GM. It had the unfortunately ill-fated attempt at reinventing the Elan with the M100, and that was unfortunately rather gazumped by the Mazda MX-5 and then the 90s Roadster boom, which left the Elan very low volume car but very well regarded for its handling. So by the early 1990s, GM sold Lotus to the Italian businessman Romano Artioli, and he reset Lotus's sights on where Lotus could really excel, where it had a niche, and that niche was exactly where it had started, making lightweight, driver-focused, mid-performance but great capabilities, road-orientated sports cars, and that's where the Elise project came in. And the Elise very much took the spirit of the Elan but modernised it, so it was very innovative in lots of ways. It's an aluminium alloy monocoque and it's mid-rear engine, so it's quite a step change from the classic British sports car layout. By drawing a line under Lotus's dreams of being a premium marque with high production volumes, Artioli was able to ensure that the Elise was going to be a car for the enthusiast. The Elise wasn't going to be a roadster that anyone could buy and use, like an MGF or a Z3 or an MX-5. The Elise was going to be for the weekend driver, the enthusiast willing to put up with Spartan cockpit and an awkward access, high noise levels, not much equipment and a plastic body in order to have the very best possible in the driving experience. And really that's what the Elise is all about. The other brush of reality Lotus had to face during the Elise's development was they couldn't use their own engines anymore. They were still making the 900 series 4-cylinder, but still a very respected engine, but it was too big both in terms of its physical size and its capacity. So they turned to Rover and the K-Series, equally famous and infamous engine of course for all sorts of reasons, but the K-Series really, for all its problems it had in Rover cars, you could not have asked for a more ideal engine to go in the Elise. In fact, if Lotus had designed their own engine for the Elise, it probably would have ended up looking very much like the Rover K-Series. Utterly prioritised low weight, low friction, very good power for its weight and its size, very free revving, clever valve technology, particularly with the VVC. So the 1.8 K-Series went into the Elise, 118 horsepower or the 135 horsepower, plus a very high performance version that Lotus developed. All that came together in the Elise, 1996, a mid-rear engine sports car with an all-alloy, lightweight, 1.8 litre twin-cam engine in a platform weighing about 750 kilos, and the results really do speak for themselves. It is just magnificent to drive, and all the plaudits, all the acclaim, all the hype about the Series 1 Elise. I'd say if anything, undersell it. I would say it is as close to perfection as a sporting car can be. Let's start with the engine. A lot of us are familiar with the K Series. It's been in a lot of things. And by modern standards, in fact even by the standards of the late 1990s, 118 horsepower wasn't going to set the world alight. But you're dealing with something that weighs 3/4 of a tonne and it pulls really well. Second, more than enough to be beyond fun and into exciting, and yet perfectly accessible as well. It revs up to well above 6,000 RPM, it's smooth, it doesn't really have the overheating problems that it had in the other products because it's doing so little work. It's ideally suited to the Elise. Mid-rear engine cars often have rather shoddy gear changes. It's hard to engineer a good gear change, but this, again, lovely. Gate is the perfect width, narrow enough to feel sporty, not so narrow that you keep getting the wrong gears. I have not hit the wrong gear once in my time in this car. Now, steering. Lotus is always really good for steering. Steering feel in Lotuses is famous, and that's been a consistent thing across all the models, even the ones that not the firm's finest hour. Great steering, and the Elise delivers this in spades. It's really hard to describe. You can feel exactly what weight and how much side force is sitting on each front wheel through the steering wheel, but it's not sort of tugging. It's not being deflected by any bumps and things in the road, and it's not fighting you, but you can just feel the way that it loads up through the steering rack, what direction that the steering is being pushed in and how much force you're putting on and exactly where in the travel the wheel is. The ratio of the rack is ideal. It's not so fast to be twitchy, it's not so slow. You can just dial in exactly every single time the exact right amount of steering. It's not one of those cars where you put in the steering and then you have to go, oh no, I haven't quite done the right amount, or I've put in too much, and you're sort of soaring away until you get used to it. A lot of sports cars work on the basis that the stiffer the springing, the more fierce the damping, the thicker the anti-roll bars, the better the performance is. The Lotus are more intelligent than that. They've always had very good ride for their performance, and the Elise again is absolutely on the money with that. Because it's so light and because it's not designed with any pretense of being a track car, it is designed to be a sports car optimised for the road. It has a decent amount of wheel travel, relatively soft springs, very, very strong damping. So it has the absorption, but it doesn't feed into the body. The body control is beautiful. You just turn it into a corner, and again, it's not completely rigid. You can feel it tipping into the corner and settling. You can feel the weight transfer, but it's not upsetting the actual dynamics of the car. It just tracks beautifully. It really does feel like you're having your feet skimming along the tarmac, and yet it's not doing that because it's so rigid that it's just jiggling over everything. It communicates it to you, but sort of filters out all the noise. It's like a very clean sine wave. It's fantastic. It's a masterclass. And of course, I'm not the only one to think that. The Elise was praised to the sky and back from the moment it was launched for all those reasons, and was rewarded by being in production for over 20 years, still when it ended production, considered as highly then as it was when it was launched. And not many cars manage that trick. I think it's glorious. It's utterly glorious. Definitely Lotus's finest hour, and quite possibly one of the finest hours for British sports cars. They can really say no more than that.
This video is proudly sponsored by Lancaster Insurance. Give them a call on 01480 400 889 for an insurance quote on your classic car. And don't forget to click the link below to enter their latest competition.